Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping into a big one, Kubernetes. You've probably heard the name, right? It's everywhere. We're going to break down what it is, where it came from, and why it totally transformed the way we build and run software. So if you've ever wondered what all the hype is about, you are in the right place. Let's get into it.
So where does this whole story even begin? Well, it starts with a phrase that every single developer on the planet knows and hates. But it works on my machine. Oh man, we've all been there, right? You build something, it's perfect on your computer, but the moment you try to run it anywhere else, disaster. It just breaks. And that exact problem, that inconsistency, is what kicked off a massive change in how we do things.
And the solution that came along to save the day? The container. Seriously, think of it like a perfectly sealed box for your app. But this box doesn't just hold your code. Nope, it holds everything your code needs to run. The right libraries, the right tools, all the settings, the whole shebang. So what does that mean? It means your app will run identically every single time, no matter whose computer it's on. That works on my machine, nightmare? Yeah, problem solved.
Okay, so right about now you might be thinking, hold on, isn't that just a virtual machine? And look, that's a totally fair question. They sound similar, but the difference is night and day. A VM is like building a whole new house on your property. It's got its own foundation, its own plumbing, its own operating system. It's heavy. A container is more like adding a prefabricated room. It uses the existing foundation, the host operating system. The bottom line, containers are way lighter, faster, and more efficient. We're talking seconds to start up, not minutes.
But you know how it goes. You solve one problem and a bigger one pops up. Containers were so good, so efficient, that big companies, think Google, think Netflix, they didn't just use a handful, they started using thousands, tens of thousands, and all of a sudden they were staring down a brand new, massive problem.
Which was, how on earth do you manage all of that? I mean, really think about it. How do you get thousands of these little boxes to talk to each other? What do you do when one of them just dies? How do you scale up instantly when you get a huge rush of users? This whole mess became known as the Great Orchestration Challenge.
And the answer to that challenge, the tool that came in and brought order to all that chaos, was Kubernetes. The best analogy really is a conductor of an orchestra. You've got all these individual instruments, the containers, and Kubernetes is the one making sure they all play together in perfect harmony. It's the master orchestrator.
So how does it actually do all this? Well, you can basically split Kubernetes into two parts. First, you've got the control plane. That's the brain. It's the boss. It makes all the decisions. Where things go, what needs to be fixed. Then you've got the worker nodes. These are the muscles. They're the ones actually doing the work, running your containers and getting the job done.
Okay, so we've got the brain and the muscle. That's the big picture. Now let's zoom in and look at a couple of the key tools inside the Kubernetes toolbox to see how this magic actually happens day to day.
The most fundamental building block in the entire Kubernetes world is the pod. It's the smallest thing you can create. Now, a pod is basically just a wrapper around one or more of your containers. The key thing is that everything inside a single pod shares the same network and storage, so they can talk to each other super easily, like they're on the same tiny little machine. A classic example is having one container running your app and a second container right next to it in the same pod, just handling all the logs.
But here's the thing, you almost never manage individual pods directly. That would be a huge pain. Instead, you use something called a deployment. And this is where the real power starts. With a deployment, you don't give commands. You just declare what you want. It's like setting a thermostat. You say, I want it to be 72 degrees in here. Or, in this case, I want 3 copies of my app running always. Kubernetes then takes over and does whatever it takes to make that true. If a pod dies, no problem. It spins up a new one instantly. That's self-healing.
Okay, but think about this. If pods are constantly being created and destroyed, they're always getting new IP addresses. So how could you possibly connect to them reliably? Well, that's what a service is for. A service is like a permanent phone number for your group of pods. The individual pods behind it might change, but the phone number, the service, stays the same. It gives you one stable address and it intelligently routes all the calls or traffic to a healthy pod that can answer.
And this is where things get really cool. Let's talk about auto-scaling. Kubernetes is always watching things like how busy your pods are. So imagine you get a massive flood of traffic. Kubernetes sees the CPU usage spike, and before you can even blink, it automatically adds more pods to handle the extra load. It scales out. Then, when things quiet down, it gets rid of the extra pods to save resources. All of this happens on its own. No one has to wake up at 3 a.m. to fix it.
You know, everything we've talked about so far, that's really just scratching the surface. It's the foundation. The real magic, the reason the biggest companies in the world rely on Kubernetes, is in its advanced features. This is how you go from just getting it to run to truly mastering how your application behaves in the real world.
Take releasing new software, for example. With Kubernetes, you can do some really smart stuff. Instead of just flipping a switch and hoping for the best, you can do what's called a canary deployment. This is like sending a canary into a coal mine. You release the new version to, say, just 1% of your users. You watch it carefully. Is everything okay? Great. Now roll it out to 10%, then 50%, then everyone. It lets you release new code with so much more confidence and, crucially, with zero downtime. That is a total game changer.
So let's just step back for a second. We started with that one simple, incredibly annoying problem. It works on my machine. And now, here we are, talking about orchestrating thousands of containers and doing these super advanced zero downtime releases. That whole journey, from that initial frustration to this incredible power, that's the story of Kubernetes. Understanding that is everything. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with all this power?